Welcome to this presentation of the changes concerning the pension reform which will be applied July 1st, 2020. My name is Erik John Tampau. I'm the Senior Pension Administrator. Today I'm going to tell you something about why we have the pension reform, the role of APS, the major changes per July 1st, 2020, the effects on the pension calculations, government pension procedures, and after that will be time for some questions and answers. Government has approved the pension reform on June 18th, 2020. Why pension reform? To ensure the quality of pension for participants now and in the future. Also to create a more affordable pension scheme for all stakeholders. To improve the sustainability of the fund for the future. And why? Because pension benefit obligations are increasing. The number of participants are increasing and persons are living longer. Pension assets, the capital is limited. Premiums that are paid are not cost effective. We have limited investment opportunities and the fluctuating investment returns. The role of APS. Our responsibility is to execute the pensioenlandsverordening. APS collects the premiums, we invest those premiums, we manage risk and pay out pensions. We also have an advisory role. Along the execution of the law, APS also advises on issues that concern the law or have effect on the pension fund. APS can also be considered as a gesprekspartner for other entities, hereby sharing experiences with other stakeholders. Accountability, we are accountable to the Minister of Finance of Sint Maarten. The task of changing the pensioenlandsverordening lies solely by the government of Sint Maarten. The changes we are going to discuss today are the changes in the pensionable age, the premiums, the pension scheme itself, indexation, duurtoeslag, pension accrual, the compensation, maximum build-up, and some minor changes. The pensionable age has increased from 62 to 65 years, with the possibility of retiring earlier at the age of 62, but then with a lower pension. The premiums has also changed. The total premiums will be reduced from 25% to 18%. The employee part of the total premium will remain at 8% of the salary minus the franchise. Once the participant can no longer add to his or her pension, he or she will no longer have to pay premium. A little comparison of the old scheme versus the new scheme. Instead of the current final pay scheme, the pension will be based on an average salary scheme with a yearly accrual of 2% of the gross salary in that year, minus the franchise. The two graphs that we see, the old scheme is where it shows that the last salary is actually the base for the pension build-up. And in the new scheme, each year we will accrue 2% and those will be added together. Indexation. The present system of automatic indexation, which is linked to the indexation of the civil servant salaries, will be replaced with an indexation that is linked to the increase of the cost of living and the pension fund cover ratio. In case of indexation, both the pensions as well as the future pensions will be increased. However, no indexation will be applied if the cover ratio is less than 105%. The present duurtoeslag regulation, which only applies to employees from the old scheme, those that joined the pension fund before 1998, will cease to exist. Accrued rights will be upheld. However, further accrual will not be possible. In addition, accrued rights will not increase with 10% while the pension age is increased. The pension accrual will initially be 2% as it is in this current scheme, but the percentage can be lowered to 1.75% if the pension premiums no longer cover the costs. Because the pension will start to go in 3 years later at age 65. This will be compensated with an increase of 10% of the pension that has been accrued up to date. However, this does not apply to the duurtoeslag. The new pension scheme is based on the average salary. This usually results in less accrued pension. However, one can now accrue pension during more years. One can now enter the pension scheme at 18 instead of 25. So in total, you can accrue 47 years. To make sure that all the additional years will result in higher pension, the maximum pension has been changed as well. Instead of the 74% in the final pay, it now stands at 100% of the highest salary minus the AOV and duurtoeslag if applicable. The widow and widowers and orphan pension has also gone through some changes. The possibility of future reduction of the amount and the duration of this pension will be included in the ordinance. The widow and widower's pension for ex-spouses will cease to exist. For orphans, they can receive pension till the age of 18 instead of 21 in the old scheme, if not going to school, and until 27 instead of 25 if attending school. For disability pension, re-examination of the diagnosed disability will be done every 5 years and subsequently can result into ending the disability pension. The possibility of introducing partial disability and subsequent partial pension will be included in the ordinance in the future. The manager of the pension departments and the adjunct director, Oscar Williams, will now tell you something about the effects of the pension calculations along with some examples.
Thank you, Eric, for the presentation and the introduction. I will now continue the presentation with some effects on the pension calculations, and I will also give some examples on the effects on some of the situations and calculations. So the first sheet, what you're seeing here, is basically a summary of the changes that will be implemented as the 1st of July 2020. To start with, the pension scheme. As mentioned before, it was the final pay. It will change to an average pay system. The starting age will change from age 25 and it will change to age 18. And the basis for the pension calculation is, instead of the average of the last 2 years minus the franchise, it will change to the calculation of the salary per the 1st of January minus the franchise. The franchise, there's no difference. There is no change in that. It remains the same. The build-up rate, as mentioned before, will also stay 2%. But of course, there are some additions to that. Once the actuarial premium is below the premium of 18%, then it will stay 2%. And if that changes, it will drop to 1.75%. The pensionable age will change from 62 to 65. And as last, the indexation will change from unconditional to conditional. And that will be based on the financial position of the fund. Yeah, so I will further continue with some examples and further elucidation on the calculations. The sheet that you see before you now is just an example of how the calculation will be performed in the new scheme. It doesn't differ that much from the old scheme. And as you can see on the slide, it's basically the senior's pension per year is calculated as the year's salary minus the franchise for that year times 1 year times 2% times the part-time percentage. So what you can accumulate at the age of 65 is basically the accrued pension that you already accrued per the 1st of July 2020. That will be increased with 10%, plus additionally what you will accumulate in the new scheme over the years. So basically that's cumulative of all the years that you build up in the new scheme. To give an example of a situation and a participant. Here you see before you a participant with the age of 30, not so long in service, 5 years in service, a gross salary of 3,500 guilders per month, and with an assumption of a salary increase of 1%. So this is an indication of what the person can achieve at the age of 65. If you look at the old scheme, you will see that the age, the retirement age is 62 years old, the accrual is 2%, and as an example, this person has accrued 191 guilders, sorry, and the future accrual is 2,160. That is still based on the old scheme, so the maximum pension will be 2,251 guilders. The new scheme will have the change that the accrued pension will be increased with 10%, and that will be 210 guilders. The future accrual will be a little less due to the fact that the average scheme is a little lower than the final pay scheme, and also due to the fact that this person just started a career. So you will see a slight difference in the build-up, which is 1,844, and the total accrual will be 2,054. So the difference is 297 guilders. And again, as I mentioned, it's one of the examples that we have for a person that just started a career, and most naturally will build up the career in a new scheme for the most part of the years. So all in all, you know, it's not a big of a difference in the total maximum pension build-up. The second example that I'm going to show is basically a young participant also not so long in service, 5 years in service, with a somewhat higher salary, 6,500 guilders, and a salary increase of 1%. There we can see actually the accrued pension is also increased with 10%, so 540 guilders, from 491 to 540 guilders. And there you can also see that the accrual is a little less than would have been in the old scheme. But again, as mentioned before in the previous example, this is due to the shorter career and the long career this person will have in the new scheme. So in the old scheme, it will result in 5,278 guilders, and in the new scheme, 4,921 guilders. So that's a difference of 457 guilders. Again, it's an example of a participant that has a higher salary, and the career will be based on the average pay scheme opposed to the old scheme. The following example is an older participant which has been in service 15 years. So this person has an age of 55 years old, 15 years in service, a salary of 8,500, and an assumption of 1.5%. Now here, as mentioned before, it's a different situation. This person had a build-up of 15 years already in the older scheme, and will continue to build up in the new scheme. And as you can see, there is still a difference in build-up here. So if you look at the retirement age in the old scheme, 62, the accrued pension is 2,072. That will be increased with the same 10%, which will result in 2,279 guilders. The future accrual will drop a little bit to from 1,319 guilders to 1,286 guilders, but the total maximum accrual for this person will increase. So that is from 3,391 up to 3,564 guilders. So that's an increase of 174 guilders. This is a different situation, and this is also based on the fact that the years in service in the old scheme contributes to the further build-up of the accrual of the pension. So again, it all depends on the situation a participant is in. and the variables that are applied. We can see that also with a participant that has even a longer term in service, so 30 years, also the age of 55, with a little less salary, so 5,000 guilders, and a salary increase of 1.5%. But this person also has a duurtoeslag component, so was employed before the 1st of January 1998. As mentioned before by my colleague Erik, there will be no further accrual of duurtoeslag. So you will see that also in the calculation here. As you can see, at the age of 62, the accrued pension for this person is 2,272. That will be increased with 10% for at the age of 65. The future accrual of pension at the age of 62 is 443. That will be increased to 771 guilders, sorry. And here is where the difference also comes in. The accrued duurtoeslag, which was accumulated under the old scheme, was 1,228, will remain 1,228. And the following one is the future accrual of duurtoeslag will change from 105 to 0, as mentioned before, which will result in a maximum pension of 4,048 under the old scheme, and the new scheme 4,489 guilders. So even though the accrual of the duurtoeslag has stopped, in this specific example, this person can build up more in the new scheme. So again, I want to emphasize it all depends on the situation of a participant and the variables that are involved. One of the components that is new to the new scheme is the possibility to retire at an earlier age. You can retire between the age of 62 and 65 years old. This will result in a reduction of the pension. This has to do with the fact that the earlier you go with pension, the longer the pension has to be paid out, and also based on the actuarial assumption that one can be paid out up to the age of 80 years old. I will, in the following sheets, I will explain a little more further. So here you can see the graph for the early retirement. At the age of 65, if the pension goes in at the age of 65 years old, the actuarial assumption is as such that this will be paid out until the age of 80 years. If one opts to retire earlier, as is specified in an example, at the age of 62 years old, the senior's pension will go in at the age of 62 years old, but as you can see in the green arrow, it will be paid out for a longer period of time. And also based on the actuarial assumption of 80 years. That means that there will be a reduction on the pension at about approximately 6% per year. So all in all, the worth of the pension in situation at the age of 65 is the same worth as the pension when it goes in at 62, even though it's lower. And the fact is, because it's lower, but it has to be paid out for a longer period of time. So this is an example of what it would look like based on a few variables. So at the age of 65 years old, the pension will be 2,500, so 2,500 guilders. At the age of 64, 2,200 guilders. At the age of 63 years old, 2,100 guilders. And at the age of 62, 1,900 guilders. So this is the effect, the actuarial effect of one that opts to go earlier with pension if they choose to do so. If you look at this example, you will see basically what was mentioned in the prior sheet, the effects of that in this example. So if I take, in this example, we have a participant 55 years old 30 years in service, gross salary per month 5,000. And you can see the effect what it will have when the person opts to go with pension at the age of 63 years old. At the age of 62, now it's basically the same as the prior examples. The maximum pension will be 3,700 guilders. At the age of 65 years old, the accrued pension will increase with 10%. The future accrual will also increase. The duty to slag will stop the increase and it will result in a maximum pension of 4,408 guilders. But when one opts to go with pension at the age of 63, the accrued pension will be increased but will drop to 2,199. The future accrual of pension will also drop to 480 guilders. The accrued duty to slag will also drop to 1,080 guilders, and that will result in a pension of 3,759 guilders. So this is an example of when one opts to go earlier with retirement. If you look at the age of 62, it doesn't differ that much, but do realize that when you do opt to go earlier, it differs with the maximum build-up of pension at the age of 65 years old. The following slides are some of the procedures that you will have to initiate by P&O and also by APS and SZV to start the process. So the present retirement procedure stays the same. 6 to 4 months prior to the retirement day, you will receive notice from P&O with letters to take to APS, SZV, to start the process of arranging your pension and health insurance. The dismissal decree usually comes a little later. So this is not different than the process from before. And also, if you want to retire early, so if you opt to go with pension earlier than the age of 65 years old, please give 6 months prior notice to P&O in writing to ensure everything can be done in time. The procedure is the same as what it was at the retirement age of 65 years old. On behalf of the government of St. Maarten and APS, I would like to thank you for your attention for this presentation.